The room was too quiet, too clean, too warm. She had never seen anything like it before. The alien slave girl sat in the corner, her knees pulled to her chest, shaking slightly. Her thin body was covered in dirt and bruises. Her arms still showed. Marks from the chains, her name? No, she didn't have one. They had only called her 312. Now she sat on the soft floor of a wooden cabin, expecting the worst. The human man who bought her hadn't said much. He had just walked into the market, saw her trembling on the auction block, and raised his hand. No hesitation. No cruel smile. Just a quiet nod. Everyone had laughed. She's useless. She'll die in a week. She can't even stand. But the human man, middle-aged, calm, and strong, said nothing. He paid a small amount of credits, walked over, and gently threw a blanket over her shivering shoulders. Then he carried her like a child. She had fainted soon after. Now she was awake and terrified. The man had brought her to this cabin far from the city. Trees surrounded them. Birds chirped outside. It was peaceful. That made it worse. Peace was often a trick before pain. Her eyes darted around the room. No chains, no cages, no cameras, but where was he? Suddenly, the door opened. She froze, heart pounding. The man stepped in. He wasn't holding a weapon, just a tray. On it, steaming soup, bread, and a glass of clean water. He placed the tray near her. Not too close. You need food, he said softly. Eat, it's safe. She stared at him, silent. He didn't move closer. Just sat on the other side of the room in an old chair. He didn't even look directly at her. Just watched the fire in the small fireplace. Minutes passed. Her stomach growled, but she didn't touch the food. She was waiting. Waiting for him to shout. Waiting for the whip. Waiting for the first demand. But he said nothing. After a long while, he spoke again. You're not in danger here. She didn't believe him. Later that night, she tried to stay awake, but her body was too weak. The blanket he gave her was soft, the floor warmer than any place she'd ever slept, but she still curled up tight in the corner, ready to run or scream if needed. In her sleep, old memories returned. Screams, fire, the sound of chains being tightened. Alien slavers laughing. She whimpered in her sleep. Suddenly, she woke up. Something was touching her. She gasped and scrambled back, but it was just a blanket, tucked gently around her. The man stood nearby, holding a second blanket. His face looked tired, but kind. You were cold, he said quietly. Go back to sleep. She didn't say anything. She just watched him carefully as he returned to his chair by the fire and sat down again. No threats, no orders. He simply closed his eyes. She stayed awake for a long time, watching him, trying to understand. Morning came. The smell of food filled the cabin again. Her stomach ached. But she still didn't touch the tray near her. The man noticed. You can eat. It's yours. She finally whispered. What do you want from me? He looked at her with calm eyes. Nothing. Her voice cracked. You bought me. You must want something. He shook his head. I couldn't leave you there. That made no sense to her. In her world, no one saved a slave. No one helped for free. She stared at him. I can't. I'm not good for anything. I'm broken. The man stood slowly. You're not broken. She flinched, expecting a hit, but he only picked up the untouched tray. I'll make something else. Then he left the room again. She sat in silence. Her thoughts screamed louder than words. Why wasn't he hurting her? Why wasn't he using her? What kind of human was this? The door was still unlocked. She tested it that evening. She stepped outside. Fresh air, wind, freedom. But she didn't run. She didn't even know where she was. And for some strange reason, she didn't want to run. Not yet. That night, she sat a little closer to the fire. He noticed but didn't say anything. He just poured her some warm tea and pushed it gently toward her. This time, she accepted. Just a sip. Warmth spread through Her chest. Not just from the tea, but from something deeper. She still didn't trust him, but something inside her whispered, maybe, just maybe, he wasn't a monster. She didn't scream when the nightmares came. Not anymore. She had learned long ago that screaming only brought pain. Be quiet. Be still. Be invisible. That's how she had survived, but this time something was different. When she opened her eyes, she was not in chains. There was no cold floor. No shouting voices. Just a crackling fire and the soft smell of herbs. She sat up fast, heart pounding. Her body screamed in pain from old wounds. Muscles stiff, bone sore, skin thin like paper, but the strangest pain was inside her mind. A heavy weight. One she couldn't explain. She looked around. The human was gone. She was alone in the cabin. She could run right now, but her legs wouldn't move. Not from fear, from weakness. She was too broken. The door creaked open. She tensed, ready to be dragged away or struck. But the man walked in slowly, holding a basket of wild berries and herbs. You're awake, he said. She nodded slowly, still, watching him like a hunted animal. He walked to the table, not coming near her. You need to heal. Your body's starving. I'll make something soft. She stayed silent. He chopped the herbs quietly, humming a soft tune. The sound was odd, gentle. Nothing like the angry voices she was used to. Where's your master? She whispered suddenly, surprising even herself. The knife paused. He looked at her and said, I don't have one. She stared at him, confused. Then, who owns you? I'm free, he said, and so are you now. Her mind couldn't understand that. Slaves didn't become free, not without punishment, not without price. Later, he brought a bowl of soup to her. She didn't take it. He placed it near her and backed away again. Why are you doing this? She asked softly. I'm nothing, not even useful. He sat on his old wooden chair. His eyes looked sad. You've been hurt by cruel people, he said. But that doesn't mean you deserve more pain. She clenched her fists. That's what masters say before they... I'm not a master, he interrupted. Then what are you? He didn't answer for a long moment. Then he whispered, I'm someone who's seen too much suffering, and I won't add to it. She turned her face away. The soup smelled good, but she felt shame burning in her chest. She didn't deserve kindness, not when she couldn't even stand up properly. That night, she tried to stand on her own, but her legs collapsed beneath her. She cried out in pain, rushed to her, but didn't touch her without asking, Can I help? She nodded slowly. He gently helped her back to the blanket. I can't even walk, she said bitterly. I'm useless. You're not useless, he said. You're wounded. And wounds take time. He placed a healing salve on her legs, slow and careful. Not once did he look at her body in the way other men had before. No hunger. No greed. Just care. She watched him closely, and something inside her cracked. Later, while he made tea, she spoke again. I used to have a name, she said. He turned to her. They took it away. Gave me a number, 312. He nodded slowly. You deserve a name. She looked at him, unsure. He thought for a moment. How about Lyra? She blinked. Lyra, he repeated. It's a star. Bright, even in the darkest sky. Her throat tightened. She had never had a name that meant something. She had never had a name someone gave her with care. Okay, she whispered, Lyra. That night, she dreamed again, but this time she didn't dream of cages. She dreamed of a fire, a chair, and a man who gave her soup instead of chains. The knock on the door was soft, but it hit her like thunder. Lyra froze where she sat by the window. The wooden cup in her hand shook. Her heart began to race. Nobody ever knocked in her old life. They kicked the door in. Or they dragged her out. By the hair, now. Even the sound of knuckles on wood filled her with panic. She looked at Clen, He was standing still, staring at the door. His calm face changed slightly. Not fear but caution. "Stay here," he said quietly. Then he walked to the door. Lyra crawled backward into the corner, pressing herself against the wall. As if she could vanish, Callan opened the door just a little. Two strangers stood outside. They wore rough military jackets. Not official uniforms. Mercenaries, maybe. Their boots were muddy, their faces cold. One of them glanced around the cabin. Eyes sharp. "You live alone out here?" Callan didn't blink. "Yes." The taller man leaned closer. "We're tracking stolen slaves. One group escaped during a border raid. Got a tip someone might be hiding one." Callan raised an eyebrow. "You think I look like a slaver?" "No," the man said slowly, "but not everyone buys them to sell." The meaning in his voice was clear. Lyra's hands tightened into fists. She knew that tone. She'd heard it her whole life, but Callan's voice stayed steady. "No one here but me." The second man stepped forward. "Mind if we take a look inside?" Callan blocked the door just slightly more. "I do mind." Silence. Tension. Then the mercenary gave a forced smile. "Fine. Just doing our job." They turned to leave. But before stepping away, the taller one looked back. "If you do see something unusual, report it. That's a warning, friend." When Callan shut the door, he didn't speak right away. Lyra hadn't moved. She was shaking now, not from cold, from fear. "They're coming back," she whispered. "Aren't they?" Callan walked to her slowly and crouched down. "Not if I can help it. They'll take me," she said. "They'll hurt you too." He looked her in the eyes. "I won't let them." She saw no lie in his face, but fear has deep roots. Fear doesn't trust so easily. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat by the fire with her knees pulled up, watching the shadows on the walls. Her body was healing, but her mind still wore chains. Callan stayed awake too. He worked quietly at a small table, cleaning old tools, sharpening a blade, fixing a broken lantern. Finally she spoke. "Why do you keep helping me?" "I'm not your family. I'm not even your kind." He paused, then answered. "When I was young, I fought in the outer wars. I saw villages burned, children taken, slaves sold." He looked into the flames. "I couldn't save them back then. I was just a soldier following orders." Lyra stared at him. Slowly she understood. Now, he was saving who he could. The next morning, she tried again to walk. Her legs were still weak, but stronger than before. Callan offered his arm. This time, she accepted it without flinching. He helped her outside into the fresh air. The forest smelled of pine and rain. Birds sang above. It was peaceful, but her eyes stayed alert, watching the trees. "Are you always this afraid?" he asked gently. She gave a dry laugh. "Fear kept me alive." "Maybe now," he said. "Trust will keep you free." She looked at him and didn't answer, but she didn't let go of his arm either. Back inside, Callan showed her how to clean vegetables and boil water. Simple tasks, but to her, they were new and strange. He didn't treat her like a tool. He treated her like someone who mattered. When she dropped a bowl and panicked, expecting punishment, he simply picked it up and smiled. "Next time we'll use both hands." That made her eyes sting. Not from pain, from something else. Something she hadn't felt in a long time. That evening, Callan sat near the fire reading an old book. Lyra lay under the warm blanket, watching him. She wanted to ask something, but didn't know how. Finally she whispered, "If they come back, what will you do?" He closed the book. "Whatever I must," he said. Then added, "You're not going back to chains. Not while I'm alive." And in the silence that followed, her fear didn't vanish, but it stepped back, just a little asterisk. She stared at the wooden spoon in her hand like it was a weapon, because to her, it was. Not long ago, she was beaten for holding one wrong. Now, Callan stood beside her at the cabin's small table, teaching her how to stir soup. You don't have to press so hard, he said gently. Let the spoon glide. Lyra's hands trembled, but she listened. He didn't yell. He didn't slap her when the spoon slipped. He just smiled and said, "That's better." She wasn't used to this, being taught. Not controlled, being helped, not handled. It felt like a dream, and dreams often turned into nightmares. When the soup was ready, Callan poured 2 bowls. They sat by the fire and ate in silence. But silence didn't hurt here. It healed. After they finished, Lyra stared into the fire. Her voice was quiet, but steady. They took everything from me. My parents, my name, my home. Callan looked at her but didn't interrupt. I used to have a name when I was little. But after the camps, they gave me a number. 312. She closed her eyes. I hated that number, but I forgot my real name. It's gone. Callan was quiet for a moment, then said, "You can choose a new name." She opened her eyes slowly. Name is power, he said. It tells the world who you are, not what they made you. She felt something stir inside her chest. Something warm, strange. I wouldn't know what name to pick, she whispered. Callan thought for a moment, then smiled. What about Lyra? She blinked. What does it mean? It's a star, he said. Bright, even when the sky is full of darkness. She repeated it softly. Lyra. The name danced on her tongue like music. Do you like it? He asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she nodded, slowly. Yes, I do. That night, she sat outside on the wooden steps, wrapped in a blanket. The sky above was wide and filled with stars. One of them, she now believed, was called Lyra, her name. For the first time, she wasn't 312. She wasn't a slave. She was someone. She whispered her name again, over and over, like a spell to protect herself. Lyra. Days passed. Lyra began to move more on her own. Her legs were still weak, but now she could walk short distances without help. Callan built a walking stick for her. She helped with small things, cutting herbs, folding blankets, feeding the chickens. Outside. Each task was a little victory. Each day, she felt less like a ghost and more like a person. But healing wasn't simple. One morning, while Callan was chopping firewood, he dropped the axe with a loud crash. Lyra screamed and fell to the ground, covering her head. Old fear exploded through her like fire when she opened her eyes. Callan had run to her, but kept his distance. I'm sorry, he said, voice low. I didn't mean to scare you. She couldn't speak for a while. Her breathing was sharp, quick. It's okay, she finally whispered. It wasn't you. It was before. Callan nodded, pain in his eyes. I understand. And she believed that he did. That night, as they sat by the fire, Lyra asked, Do you think I can ever be normal? Callan looked at her. What's normal? She shrugged. Not broken. You're not broken, he said. You're rebuilding. She smiled a little. That sounds hard. It is, he said. But you're doing it already. Before sleep, she looked at herself in the small mirror on the cabin wall. Her face was still thin. Her arms still marked, but her eyes, they were different. They were not full of fear anymore. They held a small spark, the same spark she imagined in the star called Lyra. The forest was too quiet. No wind. No birds. No leaves rustling. Lyra stood near the edge of the cabin garden, holding a small basket of herbs. Her hands stopped moving. She turned her head slowly. The silence wasn't natural. It was the kind that came before danger. She dropped the basket. Inside the cabin, Callan was sharpening a knife when he heard her footsteps fast. Panicked, she burst through the door. Something's wrong. He stood immediately. What do you mean? No sound. The forest. It went still. Callan didn't ask more. He reached under the table and pulled out a metal case. From it, he took a small old pistol and checked its ammo. He didn't smile, didn't speak. He just nodded. Stay inside. No matter what you hear. Lyra ran to the back room and closed the wooden panel behind her, breathing fast. But her heart wasn't just full of fear anymore. It was also full of something new. Worry. For him. Outside. Callan moved like someone who had done this before. He walked around the cabin slowly, eyes scanning the trees. He saw the first shadow between the branches. Then another, voices low, sharp, military. They say she's hiding in a hunter's cabin. She's small, can't have gone far. Orders are to return her, alive or not. Callan stepped forward. You're on private land, he called. Out, 3 figures in black gear appeared from the forest. They all carried weapons. Not anymore, the leader replied. We're here on contract. One of the barons wants his property back. Callan didn't blink. There's no property here, just me. The leader narrowed his eyes. We've tracked her. This place is marked. A short silence, then the man smiled coldly. Step aside, old man. We'll take her and leave. Callan raised the pistol slowly. I said. No. Inside, Lyra heard the voice. That voice. The voice of the one who used to own her. She could hear it, even without seeing him, through the soldier's tone, through the way he said property. Her legs moved before she could think. She opened the back door and stepped out. The men turned. Callan saw her first. His eyes widened. Lyra, go back inside, but she shook her head. Her body was trembling, but her voice was strong. I'm not running anymore. The leader grinned. So you are here, good girl. Now come quietly. She didn't move. Callan stepped forward. She's not going anywhere with you. She's not yours to protect, the man said. She's not yours to hurt. Callan replied. Tension snapped like a wire. The soldier raised his gun. Callan moved. Then a voice shouted from the trees, put your weapons down. A group of local forest guards stepped out from both sides, bows drawn, rifles ready. The leader of the hunters cursed. This isn't your fight. He yelled. One of the forest guards stepped forward. It is now. This land respects free will. And she's under his care. The hunter scowled, but slowly lowered his gun. We'll be back, he warned. This isn't over. Then he and his men disappeared into the trees like ghosts. The danger was gone, but the silence left. Behind was heavy. Callan turned to Lyra. Why did you come out? She looked at him with firm eyes. Because I won't live in fear anymore. Not if I have a name, not if I have you. That night, they sat together by the fire again. Neither spoke for a while. Then Lyra whispered, I remembered something. Callan turned to her. My real name, before they took me. My mother called me Kira. Callan smiled. Kira Lyra, you can be both. She nodded slowly. I think I want to be. Asterisk, she found the photo by accident, tucked inside an old book, worn from years of use. Its corners were bent. The colors faded. It showed Callan not older and tired like now, but younger, dressed in military armor, standing beside a smiling girl with bright eyes. Lyra's fingers brushed the image. Her breath caught. The girl beside him looked like her. She heard footsteps behind her and turned. Callan stood in the doorway, holding firewood. He saw what she was holding and stopped cold. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Callan stepped forward, set down the firewood and said softly, That was my daughter. Lyra sat down on the wooden bench. Her voice was careful. What happened to her? Callan sat across from her, eyes heavy with old sorrow. She died in the outer colonies, years ago, during the civil wars. He looked down at his hands, rough and strong but shaking just slightly. She was helping people, like I do now, but the wrong people noticed. She was taken, just like you were. Lyra listened, her chest tight. She didn't survive. He looked at the picture again, and I couldn't save her. Silence wrapped the room like a cold blanket. Lyra felt something heavy in her chest. For a moment, her fear was replaced by understanding. That was why Callan had looked at her with such sadness, why he never raised his voice, why he never asked for anything in return, why he gave her a name. He wasn't just saving her, he was trying to save the part of his daughter. He couldn't reach in time. You don't have to carry her alone, Lyra whispered. Callan blinked. What do you mean? You gave me a name, a home, a life. She held up the photo gently. Now let me carry her memory with you. A soft sound escaped his throat. Not quite a cry. Not quite a laugh. But something broke free. He looked away. Quickly, wiping his eyes. That night, Lyra helped him light candles around the photo. They placed it near the fireplace. She knelt beside it for a moment and said, "Thank you for giving me what she didn't get." Callan looked at her. "You remind me of her, but you're not her." He smiled faintly. "You're stronger." Later, they sat on the porch steps under the stars. The forest was quiet again, but now it felt safe, not silent. "Do you regret saving me?" she asked suddenly. Callan turned to her. "Never, even though they might come back?" He nodded. "I'd do it again, even if it cost me everything." She looked down. "I'm not your daughter." "No," he said softly. "You're something else now." She looked up, curious. "You're proof I still have something good left to give." In the morning, Lyra stood straighter than before. She washed her face in the river, tied her hair back, and put on the warm jacket Callan had sewn for her. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was healing. Not because someone rescued her, but because someone believed she could become whole again. As she stepped back toward the cabin, she whispered, "I'm not 312, not a number, not a slave, not broken. I am Lyra. I am Kira, and I am alive." She stood in front of the mirror, not to hide, but to see who she had become. The face staring back wasn't that of a slave. Not anymore. Her scars were still there, faint but real. Her eyes were stronger, wiser, alive. She tied the last strap of her coat, breathed in deep, and turned to face the door. It was time. Callan waited outside, standing with the village guards. The wind was sharp, but his hands were calm. A quiet fire burned in his eyes. They had come again. Not soldiers this time, the master himself, arrogant, dressed in gold, backed by hired brutes. He stepped out of his armored vehicle like he still owned the stars. "I've come for what's mine," the master declared. "Give me the girl, or I take her myself." The villagers stood firm. "No one belongs to you here," Callan said coldly. "She's property marked, bought, and bred." "She has a name," Callan replied, "and a voice, and rights." "She's trash," the master spat. "A broken toy." Then Lyra stepped out from the cabin. Everyone turned. She walked slowly, her cane firm beneath her grip, her shoulders straight, chin up, not hiding, not shaking. The master's smirk faltered. "You," he muttered. Lyra stopped in front of him, close but not close enough for him to touch. "You sold me like a thing, beat me, starved me. You thought you broke me." She looked him dead in the eyes. "But I'm still here," the villagers murmured. Even the guards beside the master shifted awkwardly. Lyra raised her voice, not loud, but sharp like glass. "You think I'm yours?" she said. "You don't even remember my name." The master growled. "You're mine by law." "Then the law is wrong," she replied. "Because I'm not afraid of you anymore." She turned to Callan. "This man saved my life. He gave me a name, a home, a future." She looked at the crowd. "I choose my own path now, and it's not with you." One of the master's guards lowered his gun and stepped back. "I didn't sign up for this," he muttered. Another followed. The master growled and reached for a weapon, but Callan stepped forward. "You raised that hand," he warned, "and you won't lower it again." The master froze. He looked around. No one stood with him anymore, not even the shadows. He cursed, spat at the ground. Then climbed back into his ship and roared. Away into the trees, smaller than he came. Gone. Forever. Silence fell. Then Callan walked over to Lyra. You were brave, he said. She smiled. I had a good teacher. He looked at her. So, what now? She turned to the forest. The sky. The world. I live, she said simply. For the first time in my life, I really live. Later that night, they sat by the fire one last time like they had at the very beginning. But now, there was no fear. Only warmth. Only peace. Lyra leaned back in her chair, staring into the flames. Do you think people can really start over? She asked. Callan nodded. I think they can become even more than before. She smiled. Then maybe I'll build something new. Maybe I'll help others, the way you helped me. He raised his mug. To new beginnings. She raised hers too. To freedom. And so the girl who was once just a number became a name that stood for survival, for strength, for light. Her past was pain, but her future was hers, and no one would ever take it again.